Ready to start building wealth through real estate? Here are some of our best ideas and practices that we've specifically used ourselves when it comes to investment properties.
Why is real estate a good investment? Why did you get into it, Brian? What were some of your thoughts or thinking? Why did you jump into it?
Yeah, I think the most important thing was just the fact of having something that is somewhat passive for income. I think the strategy that gets involved with making those investments and realizing that also, too, you have something that pays you out passively and also is an asset that appreciates over time. And it's real, it's there. You see it, you can have it. Those things, I think, make it a special place to be able to invest. And I think it's also this idea of leverage, being able to take a property that costs $300,000 or $500,000 and be able to take 5% or 10% or 20% of cash to be able to get an asset that it's valued at $500,000 or so. Those things make it one of the easier investment platforms, I think, for people starting out. Those are kind of the main reasons why I got into it.
And kind of how I jumped into it, or my, A was self-employed, so there's not a real retirement plan unless I put it into it. So I jumped into rentals, someday retired from real estate. I still have that opportunity to have that passive income similar to you. And then the other part I like about the rentals is leveraging. So once the rental's paid down enough or I have enough equity in there, I can go get a secondary loan, and next thing I can pull that equity out and go buy another one and leverage myself that direction. So that has been a good investment that I've used. Enjoy that part of it.
What makes a good rental property or a good investment property?
So generally when I'm analyzing and looking at a rental property, I kind of use the 1% rule of if it costs $100, I better be getting $1 on the in rent to cover that part of it. So that's kind of, $300,000, $3,000 a month in rent is kind of what I look at with the rental. Obviously there's guidelines in there of how much work does it need, or can I move in and I won't have so much upfront cost. But there's great apps and things out there, programs that you can use to analyze that information. And then on the fix and flip end of it, I've done several of those as well, and I like to use 10% for that. If I'm buying it for two and put 100 into it, I better at least gain 30,000 in equity when I'm done. So that's kind of how I analyze it and how I kind of run through it.
Yeah, and I think it's really good to note is your strategy is come up with one. You have an idea of if it's going to be a rental property, if it's going to be a flip, knowing which path you plan on going down. The biggest mistake I think people make is not kind of seeing that end result of just going, well, this seems like a good deal. I know what this is going to cost, but I haven't really forecasted what it looks like at the end. That is the most important thing. I think one of the more difficult pieces to be able to put together, but knowing what that looks like on the other side of it when everything's all said and done. Also, when it comes to a rental property, is understand the condition of that home. If
Right.
you don't know the age of the roof or the windows or the mechanicals, your biggest ticket items need to be in good shape. When those things are in good shape, you have a good rental property as long as the cash flow makes sense.
And that's where you can stick close to that 1%. If those things aren't, you're going to have that added expense, and all of a sudden I better be gaining more out of this rental, or it's just financially not going to make sense. And, going through the fix and flip, same thing as you kind of just talked about, is you got to work the numbers backwards. So I better have 10% gain when I'm done with this. If not, then it's not a good property for me.
Yeah. Factor in all the numbers that you can, forecast for any number in the future, and give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. And when those numbers make sense for it, that's when you should pull the trigger. But know your numbers. And down below, we'll have a free investment calculator for you to be able to download so you can see a little bit of our process and steps to make sure you don't run into losing money on your next investment.